All right, Dave. We're live streaming. You are on the interweb. Streaming our trash all over the internet. Fix the mics here. So, we're doing another Lefroy episode. Is that what's happening?
I think so. I think Friday night's call for Lefroy.
I don't disagree. You're not wrong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Team House.
Episode 13.
Episode 13 of The Team House with Jack Murphy and Dave Park. Are we streaming?
Yes, we are.
Good.
And I'm
two non-technical guys trying to make it in a technical world.
Yeah, exactly. Feel like like that movie Demolition Man, where you're frozen, serving out your life sentence, and then they wake you up because they need you for some reason, and the future has happened. Speaking of which,
that's a nice pull, man.
Nice pull, because November 2019 is the date the original Blade Runner film is set in. So I threw on the director's cut of Blade Runner last week without thinking about it. Just wanted to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I saw that, in the beginning of the movie, it comes on the screen November 2019. It's like, oh shit, that's in 2 days.
Really?
Yeah, it's set right now. The original Harrison Ford film.
And so, what's... I haven't seen Blade Runner in a while. Or do androids dream of electric sheep?
The
right?
Philip K. Dick short story.
So what did the movie get right and what did the movie get wrong?
From what angle?
From a historical angle. We are now...
Well,
it is now...
The first thing that really jumps out at you...
Actually, before we... Let's start.
Go for it. Well, I was just going to say, the first thing that really jumps out at you is, of course, the flying car.
Right. The flying car was, in almost every futuristic, show or movie...
It's you gotta have fun.
There were always flying cars. I think, though, that we had to have the self-driving car before we could have a flying car. Because most people can't drive, and to think of... Can you imagine all those people actually in the air?
Right.
So it has to be a self-driving car.
When you have self-driving cars, then maybe the next step is that they take to the air.
Yeah. I think it's the logical we couldn't have... There would be no way... Even if... I think that there are probably some prototypes for flying cars, but it can't work until you make sure that there are no user errors.
Yeah. So, I guess for the flying car, they've pushed things a little bit further down the road. And then the other thing that really got wrong, or it really has not come to pass, is full cybernetic humans.
Right.
Fully prosthetic bodies, artificial intelligence. We've seen robotics and we've seen AI pushed further down the line. It's not so science fiction-y as it was when the film was made in 1983 or 84 or something.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as far out there as it was back then. Those ideas are, I think everyone at this point accepts that they're going to happen.
Sure.
Right, that day is coming.
Right.
But not quite as fast as people thought. But then other things, the sort of almost dystopian future, and there's this, if not Chinese Oriental, there's probably people were thinking more Japanese than Chinese at the time.
Right, yeah.
Because that was before the Japanese bubble burst.
Right.
In the 80s.
Right. And they were the tech leaders. But
that sort of...
And arguably, in some ways maybe they still are, I don't know, but...
Well, the Japanese were, back in the 80s, people thought Japan was going to take over the world. And, and then the bubble burst, and now China is the Asian power that we're all afraid of. At the time, back in the day, China was a joke. It was like this third world country with dirt roads.
Right.
It's been this amazing transformation that some of these countries.
Well, because they embrace capitalism on the lowdown. You know what I mean?
In a sense, yeah.
They they're still...
It's capitalism for the top and communism for the bottom.
Right, exactly.
You will work for the capitalists.
Right, exactly.
Whether you like it or not.
Right.
And then the sequel, was it 2046 or 2049 was the sequel to Blade Runner that came out a year or two ago?
Yeah, no, I saw that. That was actually I mean, when it comes to sequels and reboots and everything like that,
it was
they often fall short.
It was surprisingly good. I was very skeptical. I refused to go see it in the movie theater. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And then on a whim, I watched it on Amazon, and I was just like blown away. I was like, wow, this is really, really good. And I think it manages to push the ideas further than they were in the original Blade Runner film. And I think it's very interesting, the new Blade Runner and the last Alien film, Alien Covenant, very interesting to see, because the theme becomes that these older films, they used to be about human beings having a relationship with our creations, with these AIs, with these cyborgs. In Alien Covenant and the new Blade Runner film, what happens is that the human beings are no longer the protagonists. We take a back seat, and it's about the relationship between our creations, between these two different AIs. Like in Blade Runner, the human woman.
Spoiler alert.
What's the actress's name from House of Cards? She was in Wonder Woman. She's a good actress, but she's the human character in the film, and she's not the protagonist. She's like the sidekick that the AI works for, and the film becomes a sort of standoff between these different artificial intelligences.
Yeah.
So I mean that's very interesting to me, and it's almost like, again, like things like the flying car or AI. Is it like psychologically we're starting to prepare ourselves for this? That human beings are like, we're just going to kick back with a Mai Tai in our hand, doing jack and shit. We basically don't have a role in the world anymore because our AIs are out there. They are the protagonists.
Yeah. Well, what was that? I don't know if it was Pixar. Their animated film about the robot. It was an animated film about a robot, and in it, like, all humans were just fat.
Was it WALL-E?
Yeah, WALL-E.
Hey, little girl. She's got her headphones on. Did you see WALL-E?
Alice.
She's got her headphones on, looking at the tablet. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean...
What?
Did you see WALL-E?
Or WALL-E?
The movie, the film? It's an animated kids film? WALL-E? No? Okay, never mind.
But it also goes back to, like, iRobot and Asimov's, 3 laws, right? That at what point does once artificial intelligence, reaches a certain level of sentience, at what point does it realize that humans are more of a threat to themselves? And that's, and it goes back to sort of the graphic novel, the DC, the graphic novel the series.
Oh, Injustice?
Injustice, where somebody says, all right, humans, like you guys
you had your shot.
You got this far, good job, but now we have to keep you from destroying yourselves.
I mean, I don't think it's like Terminator, Judgment Day is really what would happen. I think it really is more like, humans, so like you guys like fast cars, and you like to drink, and you like to indulge yourself. Well, like, here's this virtual reality simulator. You guys go hang out in there and do that.
Yeah.
And we'll be out here running the show from now on.
And that's the thing, is that, if you read certain, like, modern science fiction fantasy, like, there's a whole new genre that came out of Russia called Lit RPG, which is literary RPG, which is where the premise in all of these books, and it's becoming more and more popular, like in the United States and stuff like that, but it pretty much started in Russia. It also, it's like Sword Art Online, if you've seen that anime. But it's essentially that virtual reality has evolved to the point where people have deep dive, like, immersive virtual reality.
There was an anime back in the day called Hack Slash, and it was about, the whole thing takes place, it's these people playing this video game.
Yeah, and that's it. And the thing is that, honestly, how many people, if you could go to any sort of virtual world you wanted to and live out your days there, would you?
Right. That's the question of the Matrix, of course. You know?
Yeah, like I don't care.
But even more so, like, what if you got these video games people love so much, like the Elder Scrolls games?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like if it was super realistic, you couldn't tell the difference between that and base reality that we're in now.
Right.
Which world would you choose?
And honestly, which world would be more fun? Because when you think about, and this actually is interesting, because one of the questions from I'll bring it up.
Yeah, one of our supporters actually sent us a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah, and this is interesting because one of the questions is from Jeff Strickland. And one of the questions he asked was about RPGs and I think MMORPGs. And RPGs are role-playing games, which are generally tabletops or like single player. MMORPGs are massive multiplayer online RPGs. So like World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, things like that. And if you think about it, think about how interesting life would be if you actually had level ups, if you actually acquired skills and could see your skill gain. Like
in the Batman games where like you beat up a bunch of thugs and it's like, upgrade.
Right,
you get the electronic knuckles that electrocute people when you punch them.
Yeah, a little Scott Pilgrim, but even more. Scott Pilgrim is more like an arcade style game as opposed to like an RPG where you level up and you have new. So I mean, how fascinating! And it doesn't matter. You chose your life to be like some medieval fantasy or like a first person shooter. You were a counter terrorist operator.
Like Total Recall.
Yeah, in a
or a spy on Mars.
But it was a game, and if you got killed, you just respawn somewhere. Like,
but then you get into I think it was Elon Musk who said like in all probability we're in one of those now. It's the same. It's the Matrix, or are you in the Sorcerer's Dream? Mm-hmm. The philosophical conundrum.
But see, the reason I would disagree with that is because. The reason I would disagree with that is because you would have to have the crappiest programmers in the world. Because when you think of what makes a game, the idea of goals and level ups and and character development and things like that, none of that is evident in our world.
It's all rather banal.
It is. Yeah. So I would that would be my argument against this is a programmed world, because anybody who had the ability to program this world would have made it much more interesting, I think.
That and also there's the argument that there would be some sort of fail-safe that we wouldn't even be allowed to have this conversation because it would start to break things down.
Right.
There's an argument now or a point that was made. I read the article that Dr. Kissinger and I think maybe Eric Schmidt wrote about artificial intelligence, and they were saying maybe we should have a barrier that your as your Alexis gets smarter and smarter, maybe there should be questions that we're not allowed to ask the Alexa, or questions that we don't allow it to ask us, because it will start making a network connection, like questions about its own existence. That maybe we just don't let it think or talk about that because of the direction that could head in.
Right. It's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, then you should, yeah.
But it's a question. It's not just a science fiction question anymore. It's a very real question. It's something that we're going to have to grapple with.
Certainly at some point. I mean, yeah. Maybe in our lifetime, maybe not in our lifetime. I mean, honestly, I think that in order to get to the full sort of the full body
we're not going to see that in our lifetime now.
No, that'll take several more wars, and the reason I think it'll take more wars is just because our prosthetics and everything like that gains by leaps and bounds every time there's a war.
That and the defense establishment, or a portion of it would love to just have autonomous androids do the fighting for us.
Who wouldn't?
And in the future, we might have wars where no humans are actually killed. It's just robots fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's what was that cheesy show on cable TV? Once upon a time, where nerds would build their robots and they'd fight each other.
Oh, no.
I can't remember the name of it. It was funny though. But anyways, we can circle back around to that. I think the big news since the last stream we did, since episode 12, was Baghdadi getting smoked.
Well, Ryan had a question about Mortal Kombat, realistic depiction of combat, or the most realistic depiction of combat ever.
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, every time you punch a guy, like a pint of blood comes out of his head.
Yeah. So?
I don't know if it's the most realistic. I mean, which Mortal Kombat are we talking about?
Yeah, are we talking about the game, or are you talking about the games, or the movies, or the games?
Oh, the movies?
I don't know.
The original Mortal Kombat movie that they made, I have to say, it has not stood up to the test of time. It was probably the last movie that was made with claymation also, before they went to CGI.
Really?
I'm not saying it was definitely the last, but it was like probably one of the very last mainstream films where like Goro is like clay.
Yeah. I don't even remember that. I'd have to.
It's okay. No, don't go back and watch it. It's okay. Mortal Kombat is a film of its time. We leave it in the past.
We leave it in the past.
We're moving on.
It's better moving on. Sort of like Streets of Fire or Buckaroo Banzai.
Some of those kinds of stuff where, you get disappointed. You're not as nostalgic about it as you thought you were. You're like, oh, actually, that movie kind of sucked.
I'm trying to think of the last movie that I watched that was like, oh, I can't believe I enjoyed that.
I bet if I went back in time and watched, or not back in time, but if today I went and watched like a movie like Bloodsport, the Van Damme movie, like I loved that movie when I was a kid. I bet if I went and watched it today, I'd be like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so the Baghdadi raid.
Okay,
let's talk about it.
So yeah,
we're gonna get serious now, folks.
What is it? The 20th.
Buckle in.
The 26th, October 26th. JSOC Bros launch out of Erbil in Syria, one of our bases left in Syria, and they fly into an area right outside Erbil. Idlib province, which is like one of the last bastions of these radicals. It's mostly Nusra guys up there and another group called HTS. The helicopters received fire from some militants, so the DAPs came in, the direct action penetrators, which are their MH-60 Black Hawk helicopters that have 30 millimeter Gatling guns on them, and so they lit up these HTS guys, hosed them down pretty good. Helicopters come down, infill the operators successfully and the enablers. They, move to the compound. They breached one of the outer walls rather than go through the door because it was booby-trapped, and entered and cleared the structure. There was a whole bunch of kids inside. The operators killed, I think six bad guys. Mm-hmm. 4 of them were women.
With suicide
vests.
With suicide vests, yeah.
Those ISIS women, they are just as bad as the men.
Sure.
They will saw your head off in a second. So that they picked up arms does not surprise me in the least. Baghdadi was the HVT. He was the target they were after. He snatches up, initially we thought it was 3, not we, but the military thought it was 3. In the debriefs later on, came out as 2 kids.
Now, why would he snatch up 2 kids? He was trying to protect them from U.S. forces?
I guess he was trying to use them as a human shield, but also at that point, why do they think that they can hide behind kids? What do they think, we're going to call the mission off? Like, is that what's really going on in his mind right then? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, maybe he thinks he's not going to get shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what he does. That's what he believes, obviously.
So he runs down a tunnel or some sort of bunker underneath the structure. It dead ends. The one of the JSOC guys is a dog handler.
And he's thinking, I should have paid the overtime. They'd only finished this tunnel.
Brought some kibble with them. So they cut the dog loose to go down the tunnel and subdue this guy. We can only imagine, I guess, what happened at that point, but I imagine he heard the dog coming down the tunnel after him, and detonated a suicide vest, killed himself and the 2 kids. Operators go in there, they do biometrics. I believe they actually had a handheld DNA tester, and they were able to test his DNA and get a positive result in like 20 or 30 minutes on target, which is pretty amazing. We didn't have that back in the day.
Right.
We had fingerprints, we had iris scans, we could do a picture. They actually had DNA. That's pretty cool.
That is. That beats trying to pull body parts off the target to identify.
Or taking the disembodied arm.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, at that point, they evacuated the civilians off target. The operators exfilled, got on the helicopters and took off. And the target building was reduced from the air with precision munitions, just turned into a parking lot.
Yeah.
So all in all, the dog, who the name of the dog came out later, was Conan, supposedly named after Conan O'Brien, the comedian, rather than Conan the Barbarian. But regardless, part of the tunnel collapsed when the S-vest went off, and it mildly hurt the dog.
Yeah.
So the dogs came back to work. The dog is fine. But all in all, a good day, right?
Yeah.
2 kids died, which is horrible, but that's on Baghdadi. That guy's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I believe that they did a call out, didn't they?
I don't know. I've heard different things.
Okay, because I heard that they did do a call out, which is that before the forces began the assault, that they actually said, hey, come out, like you're surrounded, come out, come out. If you're not going to come out, send out your women and children.
Right.
If you don't, send out the women and kids. And generally when women and kids came off target, you knew the guys inside.
It was the Alamo.
They wanted to get it on, and then everybody just walks away and you call in. you call it an airstrike. It's like, okay, thanks.
They may have done that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I would be surprised if they did, because you're giving up such your surprise. Your surprise, speed, and violence of action is being compromised.
Well, it already has been, because they landed on the X. So, but by the time.
But you can still land on the X in 60 seconds to the breach wall, you can jump up on there.
Yeah. But I just, I think that most tactics have shifted from doing the speed, surprise, violence of action to either a stealth entry if you land on the Y or something else, so, whatever, to a call out so that you have more control of the situation and you're avoiding civilian casualties when possible and things like that.
Just from my perspective, I would not want to do a call out and then be the guy like, okay, Murph, you're on the breach, go. Like, oh, now he's had 30 minutes to get his shit together.
Yeah.
And they're going to have like a PKM right there, ready to roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Maybe they did.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't. Maybe that's something we'll find out in the future. So, I was working on a couple different stories this week. One of them was that I had the dog's name, Conan, and I thought I was going to be real slick. Maybe I broke that story, I'm not sure. I don't want to say misspeak, but I was very close. Like, I was writing the story. Probably hit the publish button at the same time. Several other people did.
Yeah.
And then also the other interesting thing, the other story.
So in the future, just I'll give you some advice from a non-journalist. In the future, your initial article is, the dog's name was Conan, publish. Then you can go back and write the full article, make the correct. Boom, man, you made the scoop.
You're probably right.
You made the scoop.
You're probably right, but I thought I had time to write like a 500-word article.
Yeah.
No, not quite. The other one, I thought I was ahead of the curve on. It sounds like I'm bragging about all this. It's really not funny when
we like
a military operation.
Yeah.
But I'm tooting my own horn a little bit. We're gonna have to live with that.
Sure.
I found out the name of the operation was Kayla Mueller, which was really interesting. Because the second I heard that name, I was like, well, first off, I've never heard an operation named after a person.
Yeah, me either.
And second, I recognized the name. She was an American aid worker,
right,
who was kidnapped by ISIS, and she was raped allegedly by Baghdadi himself.
I guess you could say allegedly, but
the wife of two IC of ISIS.
Yeah. She basically said, he made her his wife. Right? He basically made Kayla Mueller his wife.
I don't know if he did that or not, because she refused to convert.
No, right, but I'm pretty certain that he claimed her as a wife under Sharia.
Under their bizarre Salafist crap.
Yeah.
Like with the Yazidis, they don't have to marry them, they're literally sex slaves.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what she was. She was a sex slave, and then and she never converted. She never, and
we're trying to get. We're also trying to get Foley back. an American journalist, and one other journalist. And Delta had done a couple of raids in Syria to try to get those 2 journalists back and to get Kayla back.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was like one of those things like the Sunday raid where like they probably missed her by a day.
Yeah.
The 2 journalists were beheaded, which was, I mean, probably everybody watching remembers that because it was like, that was the thing where it's like, okay, these ISIS guys, like, as America has had about enough of these guys at this point.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the point where like, okay, it's on. And the air campaign was...
Trump is still worse than them, though.
Still worse than ISIS?
Yeah.
And then Kayla, it's a little more murky how that happened. We think she may have died in a coalition airstrike.
No,
we didn't know. It could have been a Russian airstrike. We don't really know.
I think that the pictures that they eventually received, and like testimony from was it Safia, but basically she was beaten to death. That they tried, like ISIS tried to pin her death on an air raid.
Really?
Yeah, but that wasn't what actually happened. She was beaten to death, and they're like, oh, she. But I think that they received photos that showed that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, that could very well be the case because, like I said, it is murky. Like,
right.
The thing with Syria is it's such a black hole.
Right.
Or it was, and it allowed all kinds of people to project whatever they wanted.
Sure.
And
unfortunately, like she was one of those people who. Believed in the greater good. I don't want to say believed in the greater good, but
she was a Christian.
And she believed in the good. I don't want to say the greater good, but in the good of everybody. And so, she took this trip up to She took a trip that when she showed up at Doctors Without Borders, they're like
in Aleppo.
Yeah, what the hell are you doing here?
Holy shit.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they tried to get her out of there and. On her way back to...
They got ambushed by ISIS.
Yeah.
I do think, beyond all the cynicism of war and a lot of cynical comments I could make about this whole thing, I do think that there is something to be said about the fact that we had these American journalists and this American aid worker, and... those guys had the guts to try. Like these operators went out there. They showed that kind of bravery and initiative and put the work in, and they went out to try to get our people back.
Yeah.
They did the best they could. I have no doubt in my mind. And when it came time to punch Baghdadi's ticket, they named the operation after Kayla. And then apparently the name of the mission came from General Milley.
Okay.
That he is chairman of the Joint Chiefs right now, so it's his idea, and the Mueller family said they were actually pretty happy about that. That they had not forgotten about her.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's justice, I guess. The
guy was a world-class asshole. Like any way you want to cut it.
Well, no. Come on. I think you're being biased here. Because some people would say that the guy was an austere religious scholar.
That shit just blows my mind.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, the Washington Post decided to write for his obituary to describe him as Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, austere religious scholar, head of, and they didn't even say. I don't even think they said ISIS.
ISIS wasn't even mentioned. It's like that's an interesting interpretation, interesting take on it. Austere religious scholar, like he's a Mormon, or he's a Quaker. He's a very very austere.
Right, very austere. His promotion of sex slavery and mutilation was just very.
And look, I would be the first to tell you, and I've always said since the beginning, I don't think Baghdadi is nearly as important as the boogeyman that he was made out to be in the media. Like, we needed a leader, we need a bad guy, an individual to focus our hate on, and ISIS gave us Baghdadi.
Right.
He was this guy like no one really heard of him.
Well,
we were chasing around a number of Baghdadis during Operation Iraqi Freedom, who were maybe the same guy, maybe different guys.
Yeah.
And then they threw this guy out as he does like a press conference at this mosque in Mosul.
Yeah.
Then disappears for a few years, shows up again, gives another speech, disappears again. I mean, he was a figurehead that was put out in front of us. And if you go through the chain of command of the personalities involved in ISIS, you don't have to take my word for this. You go through the Brookings reports and stuff like that, and it's just loaded full of bath party people.
Yeah.
You go and look at the work of Christoph Reuter did for Der Spiegel, where he laid it all out, that it was a bath party organization.
Right.
And ISIS was like the veneer. And all those foot soldiers, those like Islamic, jihadists, I mean, most of them were retarded 17-year-old kids who've never read the Quran in their life. But I mean, you just have to keep all this in perspective. Now, I'm not saying that al-Baghdadi is not a world-class asshole and he deserved everything he got.
Right.
And I'm glad we killed him. But as I believe it was a CENTCOM commander briefing at the Pentagon this week, he was like, look, ISIS is an ideology, first and last, and we don't have any illusions that this fight has ended with Baghdadi.
Right. Well, I mean, and Baghdadi was named or declared himself, maybe the Caliph. And, and most of the Islamic world, the Islamic world did not buy into that at all. Except for, a very few number of people.
Like poor teenagers who can't get laid.
Who can't get wives, essentially. I mean, that's, the same thing that brought Arabs into Afghanistan was, poor Yemenis men who had no prospect at marriage or whatever. But, and now they've named a new person, al-Quraishi, who nobody's ever heard of this guy, but it's sort of like, oh, we have a new caliph, al-Quraishi, and it's like, okay, whatever.
The other thing I found interesting, before we move on to some other interesting aspects of this story, I found it interesting that Baghdadi, leader of ISIS, we're told, camped out in an area near Idlib controlled by HTS. HTS and ISIS are like rivals.
Right.
They don't like each other.
Right.
It's almost like Osama bin Laden hanging out in Abbottabad right next to Pakistan's version of West Point.
Right.
It's like, were they unaware that he was there?
Yeah.
If so, why did those HTS guys come out to fight the Americans and shoot at our helicopter? Was it just because they were like, oh, those must be Americans, let's shoot at them? Or was it they were coming to protect Baghdadi?
Right.
What was the relationship there? And probably up at the JOC at JSOC, they probably know. They probably have an idea from their analysis.
Sure.
But I'm just interested myself.
I mean, it could boil down to the easiest or the most common denominator is ISIS had money. ISIS had funding.
Yeah.
And look, you can disagree with somebody on an ideological level all you want, but if they're paying you, if you're making it rain, maybe we can handle that. Maybe we can handle that.
Maybe there's an exception to strict interpretation of Islamic studies.
Yeah. I mean, ISIS has funding through Saudi Arabian citizens. It has, it has funding. So I mean, it could just be a matter of payoff, and hey, we'll give you some of these great Yazidi sex slaves, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, very well could have been something like that.
So,
and then interestingly, another interesting thing was the Bin Laden template. It's a template that we've seen used like time and time again, I think, with these high value targets, and we saw it play out with Baghdadi, like to the T. Like a couple days after the raid, newspaper publishes, we got to him by the courier. This was the same story with Bin Laden. It's like bullshit. That's not how we found him, through some fucking courier. We need to go talk to his grocer. Get the hell out of here. Then the whole story about that we buried him at sea. Saying we buried his remains at sea. And
I think you have to bury his remains at sea, though. I mean, because you can't give him a grave.
No, we don't want to do that.
If you give him a grave, you make him. You create a new pilgrimage site.
I'll tell you this. I mean, I wrote an article about this a ways back. one of the enduring mysteries of the Bin Laden raid, and I'm not like a conspiracy theorist guy that's like, oh no, Bin Laden is living in Maryland somewhere. That's not what I'm getting at. I mean, SEAL Team 6 went to Abbottabad, Pakistan. They killed Bin Laden. Done deal. Okay. But some of the details within that narrative have been fudged, in my opinion. One of them being what happened to the body. Now, if you talk to anyone on the Carl Vinson, anyone, they'll tell you we found out about his burial at sea on the Carl Vinson. They'll tell you we found out on Fox News. Now, is it possible that a black Chinook flew in the middle of the night, and it was a very compartmented small group of people on the deck of the ship, and they said Allah Akbar and dumped them into the water? Maybe. But of all the leaks that have happened, I mean, not a single person from the Carl Vinson has come forward and be like, I was there, I saw the body go in the water. Not a single person.
I don't necessarily think that a burial at sea, when it comes to something like Bin Laden, is going down the way you might think a burial at sea goes down. I think that it might be
like one guy holding him by the wrists and the other by the ankle.
I think that it might be, his body bag on the helicopter, like the commanding officer and like the chief, surgeon or whoever of the
kick him off the deck.
Go up, go, yep, that's him. Okay, take photos for verification. Okay, all right, guys.
The press release said that he was his body was wrapped in accordance with Islamic traditions, blah, blah, blah. There was like an imam there.
I am 100% certain. I am 100% certain that happened. I am 100% certain that they had an imam on the USS Carl Vinson on standby, just in case they did kill him and brought him back, and then they had the wrappings and they went through the entire. I'm sure that happened.
I think one day we're going to find out that his body is right here. It's like at some military hospital in Virginia or Maryland.
So they can clone him.
Oh, Jesus, like Hail Hydra or something like that. Where they're cloning Hitler. I don't buy the story that they dumped him in the water. But I thought it was interesting that they played out very much the same template with Baghdadi, because it's kind of like, well, the American public bought the story once, let's just sell it to them again.
Well, but how much of a body do you think was left of Baghdadi after he clacked off, though?
I don't know, man. I mean, usually the head is intact when a guy pops himself.
Yeah. Sorry, this is probably yeah.
Hey, real talk.
Yeah.
Real talk.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I don't see why they wouldn't just bury the body at sea, as opposed to bringing, like, what good is it? It's like when you keep too much stuff in your. It's like, I should probably get rid of some of these bodies.
I kind of feel the same.
I got Bin Laden over there. I got Kennedy over there. I got
I think that part of it is that they have to contend with. So, like, let me put it this way: if that stealth helicopter had not crashed in Pakistan, we would never have known that they were there. They would have those helicopters would have disappeared, and then they would have announced a couple weeks later that they killed Bin Laden on the Pakistan-Afghan border. The whole story would be completely different. So
no, it wouldn't, because
their narrative about how it went down.
No, it wouldn't, because that the guys that do it are
gonna write a book.
Did you ever see this?
I admit, again, in hindsight, probably not the best.
Did you ever see the sketch with what's his name?
Okay. I killed that guy. Yeah. Like, you have to keep this secret for the rest of your life. He's like, I will, sir. Like 2 seconds later, he's down at the bar with the bottle. I killed Bill Laden.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So.
But they have to contend, like, what if the world doesn't believe that Bin Laden's dead? What if the world doesn't believe that Baghdadi is dead?
It doesn't matter, because if Bin Laden, if Bin Laden or Baghdadi if they don't show up, generally, like, these organizations are pretty I don't know if they're pretty honest about it, but they'll usually say so and so's dead and now so and so is running it because they have to get the word out to them.
I mean, didn't they keep Zawahiri like on the down low for like a long time?
Was that like 3 years? No, I'm thinking of Omar, because they kept Omar on the down low for a number of years too. Can't remember, but I don't know. I don't see any big conspiracy with it, like with that or Bin Laden. Just I
don't want to use the word like conspiracy.
I don't want to cover up. I don't see the point.
Or a cover up. I just think that there are some like critical details that were fudged in the
I mean, probably. Probably, but I mean, a lot of times they do that to protect resources, assets.
I think absolutely that they. I think they lied for the right reasons.
Yeah.
That they were trying to protect some of their assets. And that's why you get the story about the courier.
Right.
Because you're trying to protect the actual asset, the human asset that was on the ground.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it. And they're right to do that.
Now, another downside to this actually is because of Conan. Now, guess what kind of dog everybody wants?
A Belgian Malinois.
Yes. And if you don't know,
they are wound.
They are not great. They're not great family dogs. I mean, they can be, I guess, if you're the type of person who's going to spend a ton of time training them. I mean, they can be like, everybody is scared of pit bulls. Pit bulls are generally sweethearts, as long as they're not. Malinois are different. Like
they're wound up.
They'll
chew up your house and tear everything.
They're wound very tight.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like when Harry Potter came out, and all of a sudden everybody was buying owls, and and then all of a sudden, and then all these shelters had to take in owls after the first week, and everybody realized how much they poop and and everything else like that.
I watched this documentary with my daughter last year. She had to do a school project on raccoons, and there was a cartoon in Japan back in the 80s. Like Ricky Raccoon, here's Ricky the Raccoon, and this cartoon, because of this cartoon raccoon, all these people in Japan fell in love with. They all wanted to get a raccoon as a pet.
And trash panda.
And the trash panda is not indigenous to Japan at all.
Right.
So they start illegally importing them into Japan, and raccoons also, they're not house animals.
They're not domestic. Yeah.
They're not domesticated.
Yeah.
So of course people start letting them loose. And now Japan does have a population of raccoons, all because of this cartoon, this Ricky the Raccoon or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a breeding population of raccoons. But anyway, so they released a picture of Conan, and I was told that JSOC did not want to give up the picture, but the White House was not taking no for an answer. So eventually, reluctantly, they hand over the picture of the dog. That goes out, and then they released a couple days later some edited footage of the raid. You can see the operators walking up to the compound. You can see Daps doing a strafing run on the HTS guys.
Yeah.
And then you can see them just blowing up the compound after the fact.
Yeah.
So there's a release of some footage and the picture of the dog. And the second the picture of the dog went out, I posted on Twitter, I was like, click, and share, because this dog is going to dominate the next media cycle.
Yeah.
And that was an easy prediction to make.
Yeah.
I think he still is.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the long and short of it. But the only other thing I wanted to go over before we move on to other topics was I was able to talk to a retired sergeant major from the unit that executed that raid. So he's retired. He had nothing to do personally with that operation, but I just want to kind of get his thoughts on it. And so I'll read them here for you real quick. I asked him what he thought about Trump's victory speech after the raid. He said, there's a lot of eyes in his speech. He's not a good public speaker. Have someone else write that shit for you. I don't like that. Regarding Pelosi complaining that she wasn't informed about the raid, he said, next one someone needs to talk about is the other side of the aisle saying they were not informed. People need to understand that this is just another night in the last 20 years. We never got a break when the first war ended, and this is just another. These decisions are left up to 06s, up to colonels. And they have done so many more dangerous and more complex operations, but we're not going to talk about that.
Right.
There's no requirement for him to notify anyone. When you try to inform people, by the third night, they say, stop calling me. Goddamn, man. It's been going on forever. I got it if you were starting something new or crossing international borders, but this has been going on for 3 years, referring to our presence in Syria.
Right.
Just another day in the office. There were times in Mosul and Baghdad in 2006 when we were running out of ammunition. If Congress has a problem, get rid of AUMF or let the man do his job and let the boys do their job so they can kill these guys faster and get inside their decision-making process. So he's referring to the authorization for the use of military force, which is what authorizes like the entire global war on terror, and that we have military forces engaging in operations all over the world. So, yeah, if you have a problem with it, I mean, if Congress has a problem with it, repeal the fucking AUMF.
Right.
And stop.
Which is the president's ability to authorize military action.
Yeah.
Without a formal declaration of war, right?
Yeah. So then I asked him about how he felt about releasing the footage. The footage, I asked him about the footage of the DAPs coming in and hosting those HTS guys. And he said, we need to put more of that out there. That needs to be on the news every night. I got no problem with that. I got a problem with people in the jock cheering over it when none of them go out and do that stuff. But they need to be shown the error of their ways. DAPs just fucked them up. That's what you get. The Z team firing at helicopters on a no-illume night and then eat that 30mm and cry when they were picking up pieces of their buddies. So, and then regarding some of the bigger picture stuff, he said, the takeaway is that in a time that this guy's getting impeached, that this guy's taking a knee, at this time the U.S. military can still put guys anywhere we want during a cycle of darkness, and we don't want people to, if we don't want people to know, they won't. Maybe the Israelis can do it as far as they can see, maybe the Brits a little bit, but no one can do it like that. People say the military is tired and broken, but this group of guys is not broken. This happens because they are the right guys with the right stuff, be it the helicopter pilots, cooks, mechanics, and everyone involved. No one needs a cheerleader, they just need to be told what the target is. It takes an incredible amount of work to get that machine to function properly. It is kind of hard to articulate because they make it look so easy. But there are so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
So I thought it was some interesting comments from, in a guy who was on the inside for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I agree with all that. I don't have a problem with people in the jock cheering that stuff because it's sort of like when you're watching. I hate to use this sort of analogy, but it's like when you're watching your sports team, your city sports team. Like the people in the jock are still they're still a part of it, even if they aren't on the ground. Like they still feel a part of it, So for them to cheer, I
get it to a certain point, but it's also like it's the same thing with the dog. All right. I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, look at this cute puppy! Look at this cute puppy!" It's like two kids got blown up.
Yeah.
They got murdered by this douchebag.
Yeah.
We've been fighting this war for 18 years.
Yeah.
Dude's coming home, getting buried in Arlington.
Yeah.
Don't pull this. Hey, look at this cute puppy over here. Look at this. Look at how cute the dog is. Don't pull that shit on me, man.
Well, it works.
Oh, it does work. Yeah. I'm not saying it doesn't work.
So
I'm just saying it's bullshit.
Yeah. I
like dogs. I like our military dogs too. I just don't like the publicity stunt.
Yeah. No, I agree. Are we missing anything?
Austere religious God. Would Hitler be described as?
Oh, Andrew. So, if you go on, was it WAPO death notices? Hashtag WAPO death notices.
Oh yeah.
Or WAPO obituary. I think it's WAPO death notices.
Yeah.
There are quite a few. The Washington Post, I came under heavy fire on Twitter for this. You should definitely check out. I think it's hashtag WAPO death notices.
That's one of those things, man. It's like I don't care who you are, but it's like austere religious.
Well, that was like the New York Times tweet about Mao that he was something revolutionary, what did they say? I hate to. Let's see here. Sorry, guys, but.
So one guy's asking what types of anime do you all like? And I haven't watched anime seriously since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But I do like the Ghost in the Shell series. I have that all on DVD. I actually rewatched it a few months ago. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But as far as like what's cool now, I have no idea.
Yeah, I watched. I'm trying to get back into anime. And when I say back into it, I mean I didn't watch a ton when I was younger, and there's so much more available now. But I really like Attack on Titan. I started watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Castlevania. I know I
saw clips of Castlevania. Was that cool?
It was, yeah. Well, was it Castlevania? Yeah. It was all right. There's a bunch that I've had a couple friends who are really into it make me a list. So there's I have like this full list of the anime and the order in which I should watch it.
I saw an ad on a city bus today for the anime convention. And I think it's like next month or something.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
At Javits?
Like a New York City Anime Convention. I was like, on one hand, like, yeah, maybe go for that nostalgic factor, but on the other hand, like, there's going to be weird stuff, won't there? There's going to be weird stuff.
Yeah, of course there is. We should do like two boomers watch anime.
Weird. I'm going to get my man-fae. My man-fae out there.
Yeah, right.
Got that thing mothballed. I need to get it out of the closet.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I've been watching a lot, but I want to start watching more.
Hack Slash.
Oh,
Rob Riggle, yeah.
Someone mentioned Jinro, the Mamori Oshii film. That was a really good movie, really dark, but yeah, really good movie.
I don't think I've seen that.
I've seen a lot of the Miyazaki stuff.
Yeah, the Miyazaki films.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
The last one I saw, I can't remember the name, but it's like a sea story where there's like the prince of the sea coming out of the water, and the little girl or the little boy, he gets turned into a goldfish. It's an interesting movie.
So, what else are we talking about today?
Human Rights Watch report came out today, accusing paramilitary forces in Afghanistan, trained by the Central Intelligence Agency, of being up to no good. Doing some like extrajudicial killings and stuff like that.
Okay, so this from Soldier of Fortune magazine. I guess Human Rights Watch. CIA-backed death squads committed summary executions and other grave abuses. CIA responds. Afghanistan's CIA-backed forces commit atrocities. And it goes on to say, CIA-backed forces have committed summary executions and other grave abuses without accountability, Human Rights Watch said in a report released today. These strike forces have unlawfully killed civilians during night raids, forcibly disappeared detainees, and attacked healthcare facilities for allegedly treating insurgent fighters. Civilian casualties from these raids and air operations have dramatically increased in the last 2 years. This 53-page report says they've shot many like this. Abusive night raids by CIA-backed Afghanistan strike forces. Documents 14 cases from late 2017 to mid-2019 in which CIA-backed Afghan strike forces committed serious abuses, some amounting to war crimes. So, the report is based on interviews with 39 local residents and other witnesses to night raids in Ghazni, Helmand, Kabul, Kandahar, Nangarhar, Paktia, Uruzgan, Wardak, and Zabul. So, my first question when it comes to something like this is, the report was based on interviews with 39 local residents. How do these people know that they were CIA-backed Afghan forces? Like, when these Afghan forces went in, allegedly, did they say, we're CIA-backed forces? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, do the NDS guys wear different uniforms?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's NDS now. Outside, they're either part of
the Afghan army.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're not part of the army, then they're NDS. But they fall, whoever they are, they fall under some sort of, some sort of purview of somebody. the thing is like, my question is, how do these villagers know who it is? One, allegedly that's doing this, because you know as well as I know that it's hard sometimes to differentiate the truth and everything. And the other thing is like, how do they know if somebody did go in and do these things that they're saying they did?
I mean, they could be full of shit, of course. But I mean, our SWAT team in Tel Afar, we would go and do raids in the middle of the night in Mosul.
Yeah.
And like by the time we got back to Tel Afar, there was already chatter that Tel Afar SWAT was in Mosul.
Yeah.
And how did they know that? Because they heard my guys talking, and they speak Turkmani. It's different than Arabic.
Right.
I mean, the local people aren't dumb. They know what's going on.
Well, I mean, but I would say that in Afghanistan, I mean, I don't know the specific forces they might be talking about. What I know is within the special operations community and their purview of the different counter-terrorist teams and whatnot within Afghanistan, they don't pull them from one region to the other.
Right.
So
I mean, can they tell the difference between, say, NDS and like the Kandak commandos?
How?
I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying is how do these people know that these, what makes them CIA backed? Is it funding? Is it CIA led? Is it, CIA trained? First off, what makes them CIA backed? Because they're also mentioning airstrikes in here. And as far as I know, do you know of any Afghan forces that have airstrike capabilities? Or I don't know what the current situation is.
I mean, they've been trying to train in Afghan Air Force forever, but I don't think they have airstrike capability.
Right. So, so the question is like, who's doing airstrikes?
Yeah.
And so it just these things always come down to, the question of, they say it's CIA, but people blame it's like how that's just an easy
because if it didn't have the CIA acronym after it, no one would give a shit about the report.
Right.
Honestly,
right.
And unfortunately, that's the God's honest truth.
Right. And the thing is, so are there special stamps on their rounds? If these things did happen, and I'm not saying that they didn't or whatever, but they're saying that a family was executed or whatever for giving Taliban food, or whatever. And it's just no, as far as I know, no force under the purview of Americans, whether it would be special forces or, the Marines training people or, the Army, kind of their special, training, those forces don't just go around executing people. Nobody wants to lose their job. Nobody would really stand for that.
Is it possible some of these units are going off the rails though?
I don't know. I mean, who knows?
It's like the guys we train and then we're not supervising them.
Well, and that's the question. Is that and that begs the question that the Human Rights Watch is trying to lump. They're saying in what 9 different provinces? How many different provinces? Ghazni, Helmand, Kabul, Kandahar, Nangarhar, Paktia, Uruzgan, Wardak, Zabul. So 9 different provinces. They're saying that all these are CIA backed.
Over the last year.
2 years. Yeah, basically a year and a half. That suddenly there's, how do they know it's not false flag? How do they know it's not Taliban pretending to be? How do they know any of this stuff?
Well, and also because we know, and I'm not saying it's BS, but we do know that Afghans, if they think they can get some sort of reparations out of you,
100%.
They will, they're impoverished people. They'll do whatever they can to get money out of you.
100%.
So, unless somebody went and examined the bodies,
right.
That's the first thing for me. It's okay,
right.
See the bodies. Right?
Well, and then not only the bodies, but again, I don't know. It's very interesting that sort of the critical thinking aspect of it is, okay, like, just because these people say that they're, CIA backed or U.S. Special Forces backed or whatever.
Did they have any other evidence other than interviewing some locals on the ground?
Human rights organizations, which, I mean, some of those human rights organizations
are Taliban.
They're Taliban fronts, So I mean, yeah, it's just fascinating to me. Like, I think it's easy to say, especially with like sort of the way conspiracy works out there, amongst the indigenous, the locals.
Oh yeah. It's the Jews. They're trying to get us in the night.
Right. But I think it's easy to say that, if something happens, it's the Americans.
Yeah.
It's nefarious, whatever. I mean, it could have been the people over in the next village. It's like, well, if we say it's the people over the next village, we're not going to get anything. But if we say it's, some U.S. backed force, then maybe the U.S. will kick in some money. They'll kick in because the United States, our military, our government, we used to pay people off left and right for you blowing a person's door. If it's the wrong house, you give them $500 or whatever, $100 to fix their door. Sorry about that, guys.
I told you the story. I wrote about it in my book about how we blew the guy's door down 3 nights in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. We we did that too in Baghdad. Not the same time, but we blew a door one night. It was this heavy steel door. And as soon as like the smoke cleared and the ring stopped and our troops go in, this woman starts screaming. And she's yelling about her son. She's so pissed because it's like the 3rd time people have blown in her door because of what her son's doing, but he doesn't live there. And she's so mad at him because she keeps on putting on heavier and heavier doors and they keep on getting blown in because her son is like a rotten dude. And yeah. But so it's just, I mean, you always have to read stories like this with, just sort of kind of the critical eye. Like, how do you know? 9 different provinces, like, these are all, this villager here, this old man who lives out in the boonies knows that those were CIA-backed troops. Like, how?
It's like the story where that ODA supposedly called in an airstrike and blew up a hospital, which was a war crime, but it's like, there were Taliban guys like using the hospital as cover and they're shooting at the team from there. It's like, okay, like how am I supposed to handle that?
Right, and did they know it was a hospital? You know what I mean?
I don't think they did actually. There's a big report. There's like actually a classified report. But it's the same thing. If they're using a mosque, like, dude, I don't want to drop a bomb on a mosque.
Right.
Dude, if you're using it as a fortress, then so be it. J-damn that fucking thing. I don't care. If they're staying. If it's a church too. If there's crazy militants using a church as a fortress, I mean, I'm going to drop a bomb on it. I don't fucking care at that point. Like, that's what you have to do to win the battle. Like, are you going to let these assholes just run your town?
Right.
Like, no one wants to blow up a church, but
right. Well, I mean, that's the same thing. Like, there are a lot of places in Iraq and whatnot, more so than Afghanistan, because trying to think. I think it's predominantly Iraq, where when you would go into one of like the smaller towns or whatever, the insurgents, like, ringing the mosque bell was how, or call the prayer, not the bell, but the call the prayer.
The minaret. We used to call it the talking penis.
Yeah. but that was how, you're there at like 02, and all of a sudden the minaret starts blasting.
Oh, fuck.
Here it comes, because that was how they called everybody to arms. It's like, here it comes.
Yeah, you get that shiver up your spine when you get 3 a.m, like, oh boy.
Yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, that's just, it's always laughable, when people attribute these nefarious things to Delta or,
Again, like I was saying, that Syria was a black hole, and you could project what you wanted into it.
Right.
A very secretive unit like Delta or an organization like the CIA,
right.
that they're deliberately secretive, they have to be, but that creates this black hole that like anyone can project into. And like, oh, they're behind this, behind that.
Right, yeah. You know, Manchurian candidates, one and all.
Now, there's parts of the world where like, you see how it's raining out right now? The CIA did that.
Right.
Like, really? I
mean, there are parts of the United States where they do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's a level of paranoia out there. I mean, that I saw it a lot in Kurdistan, where people, if they see something happen on the ground, because in their mind, America is so all-powerful that if they see something happen, they interpret that as being America's intention, that we made that happen.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you, I had people from entrepreneurs in Erbil, like business people, to people in the markets, to a PKK, a very intellectual guy. All these Kurds tell me the same thing. ISIS is America.
Yeah.
Daesh is America.
Yeah.
It's part of America's
But you hear that from Americans. You hear that from Americans.
I know.
You know, that's the thing. Is it, look, did we arm the Taliban against the Russians? Yeah, you know, we did.
And that's the thing, there's like that little kernel of truth.
Right. Where, you know, and then that builds on, you know, on these massive, and even in Syria, you know, do we really know sometimes who we were arming and training, you know, to, you know, for our Arab Spring, you know.
Yeah, we armed a lot of people we shouldn't have.
We armed a ton of people. You know, everybody talks about the heyday of the Obama administration and how there was no scandal under Obama. It's like, does anybody remember Arab Spring at all? Does anybody remember Arab Spring? Because
Libya and then Syria, and we started arming a lot of bad actors in
the revolt in Egypt, right? I mean, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a big story about how the CIA was arming jihadists and people we should not have been arming in Syria, and the story was really ignored. It really was. And I had the facts nailed down pretty good. But, and then there's like, after Trump got elected, there was one story published, like, America's arming jihadists. Like, after Trump got elected, suddenly that was allowed to become a story.
Yeah. Well, it's like the detainee centers down on the border. You know,
you mean the concentration camps thing?
Right, the concentration camps, where they were using photos taken during Obama's administration I don't know. It amazes me sometimes how easily we, as a people, just fall for shit.
And we're not principled about it, you know. It's like, when my guy does it, it's okay.
Right.
When that guy does it, it's bad.
Right.
It's like, wait a second, like, if you're saying these are concentration camps, then like those it's always been bad.
Right.
There's never been a time when that was okay.
Right.
At least from my perspective.
Right.
But
it's worse under Trump because he hates Trump.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's sort of like, you know, the Republicans storming the SCIF the other day, and all of a sudden, all these people come out, and they're like security experts, like, oh, well, they shouldn't be in a SCIF with a cell phone, and it's like, you weren't worried about Hillary's emails. Well, that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
Okay, you know, like, I mean,
we're seeing this last week with the whistleblower coming forward, and all these liberals like saying like, you can't attack a man in uniform. This patriot, he's a hero with all his war decorations. Like, when have you ever heard the left talk like that before?
I know.
Like, that's like bizarre.
I know. I know. Well, and but didn't he turn out to be like heavily tied to the DNC? Like, he was.
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm waiting to see how that plays out, because there's a lot of conspiracy theory.
Well, apparently Schiff's not allowing Republicans who are in the session, not allowing them to ask questions.
Well, has he been? Have they taken a deposition yet?
Yeah, they were
He was subpoenaed, and they questioned him.
And they were questioning, and he would not allow, because they're like, who did you talk to before you came, or who did you talk to at this point in time? And Schiff's like, no, we're not gonna allow those kinds of questions. Like, dude, like, they're allowed to ask. I don't know. It's weird. It's really
yeah, and I don't know all the facts of the matter, and I mean right now I see such a convoluted situation. I don't see them forthcoming at the moment.
Well, I think the idea is the Democrats know they can't beat Trump. They don't have a candidate that can beat Trump, and so basically, and they know that they can't actually impeach him. But what they can do is like use the impeachment process to drag him down into the mud and say, and try to use that.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have enough to impeach, but no, I think it's more the latter. It's your point that they're just trying to dog him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look again. If this impeachment would have come up as a result of what they found out from this report, that'd be one thing. But they've been talking about impeachment since the day he was elected. Yeah. So it's sort of like, whatever.
Another
guys.
day.
Yeah, whatever, guys. You do you. You do you. I mean, obviously you don't care about governing, or representing your constituents, but. And look, I can't say that, the Republicans were really any better during the whole Bill Clinton thing either. It's like, I mean, he did perjure himself under oath, but we are talking about high crimes and misdemeanors. And should a president really, is something like that important enough to really like throw a hiccup in the running of this country?
I think that's why they didn't impeach him though.
Well, they censured him, right? Or
something like that. They slapped him on the wrist.
Yeah. But anyway.
What do we got?
So, we got some questions in from one of our supporters, and actually...
Okay, alright, thanks, Andrew.
What's he saying?
The Army officer in the NSC wasn't tied to the DNC. I was thinking of the original whistleblower.
Oh, okay. So yeah, just take a moment to just say we got some new YouTube subscribers and some new supporters on Patreon this week. So I just want to say thank you guys. Thanks everyone who's supporting the stream, and thanks everyone who's tuning in. It's really cool. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell notification so that you get notified when we go live the next time. And if you're interested in supporting the stream, check us out on Patreon.
Yeah. Just $2 a day you can feed.
Oh. And you want to see, my daughter's asking me about what is it?
The Perplexus.
The Perplexus. So she wants me to show off this toy that I can't remember how it came up, but I first saw this thing many, many years ago when you were in the hospital. You don't remember it. Yeah, you were in the hospital, and you had an infection. Obviously, she's okay, but it worked out. But in the hospital, they had this toy called the Perplexus. So I started I got obsessed with this damn thing. They had one that it has 150 obstacles on it. This is like the beginner one. It has 70, and it's like a 3D puzzle. So obviously you can see inside it. It's got the little rat maze, and that thing you hear rattling around is a ball bearing. So where is it? The start point.
They can't see.
Yeah, I know they can't see. So you get the ball bearing right here, and then you guys start rolling it around, and you got to turn the entire thing to move the ball bearing through.
So once you get up to the 150,
this one is only 70.
This is 70. And you work your way up into, so it's a 3D puzzle. Now, once you're done with this, do you move on to 4D chess?
This is 4D chess.
This is 4D chess.
So I beat this thing this afternoon, and I tell Dave when he comes over to my place, and Dave, first thing this guy says, he's like, "Show me the receipts." I'm like, what the hell, Dave? So, and I did. I took a picture on my cell phone and I showed you. I had the ball, and it's the ball bearing is.
I didn't say show me the receipts because I'm not that modern. Because show me the receipts, I think, is a new Twitter thing. I said pics of your line, right? That's what you say in my day, pics of your line. But he had the receipts. He had the pics. I mean, I know, with the Rubik's Cube, I used to break mine apart and then put it back together.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because I could never solve it, so I'd pry it apart and put it all together, and then...
I peeled the stickers off.
Oh, yeah. That's smart. Yeah.
Put them back where they belong.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Perplexus, I surprised myself. I got to 70 on the thing and beat that one.
You know where I got to? I got to 1010.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did.
The other Perplexus, the bigger one.
I want the Harry Potter one.
The epic one, and it has 120 or 150 obstacles on it. And I was watching an interview, the guy, the engineer or the artist, whoever designs this, he never beat it.
Right.
He didn't beat it himself.
Right.
Yeah.
We have some questions, right? From
yeah. One of our supporters had a whole bunch of questions that he wanted to drop on us, and some of them are going to require a little more consideration from Dave and I. But there's a few here. Do you, Dave, think the gap between officer and enlisted personnel is too wide and has gotten to the point where it is negatively affecting the military's ability to do its job? If so, what do you and Dave believe some remedies could be? Would something such as having a rank of an NCO be on level or even higher than a junior grade officer work, or is that just asking for trouble from all sides? Do officers need to be put more into a field or technical positions where they are the individuals performing the same tasks as higher rank enlisted are to ensure the officer gains the experience, but also has the understanding of what is needed from an enlisted individual perspective?
I can only speak from sort of like the special operations side, because
Little girl, if you're gonna play with that, can you go outside? Just because I think the ball bearing going back and forth is gonna show up on the audio.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I personally don't. The divide has always been there, right? Like what was the description of the NCO or the enlisted man? The old description, a brutish. There's an old description.
No, I don't know.
Of the enlisted. That dates back, I believe, to like the Revolutionary War, maybe, but the divide's always been there, and I think the divide is important in some ways, because the officers they're not operators, they're not, and when I say operator, I don't necessarily mean in the special operations sense, I just mean they're not the mechanics, they're not the cooks. They are there to make sure that the people doing the job have the resources they need to do the job.
And like in the infantry, the NCOs and the enlisted men are getting the job done, and the officer, it's kind of his job to be thinking about where are we going next.
Right, understanding the bigger picture, and also
what's the next ridge line? Right. What do I got to do to get us ready to go there?
Right, and I think now, with that being said, our military is way too top heavy. If you look at the number of generals like during World War II compared to the number of generals today, we have way too many senior officers,
it's the thing you have to understand about the U.S. military is that it's all a post World War II construct. It's still to this day designed with sort of a post-World War II mentality. That it's designed so that we can ramp up in the time of war very quickly if we have to. So you have all those officer ranks filled out. And even the enlisted NCO officer kind of caste system is still sort of like a 1930s, 1940s sort of thing.
Right.
It is kind of antiquated in today's day and age, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the military, with the millennials coming to, I don't want to say coming to power, but coming of age and becoming sort of the senior leadership in different organizations, if there will be a change in the way our military is structured, whether through rank,
I personally would not have a problem at all, and I know so when you talk about this subject, there's a lot of military tradition involved. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a pragmatic, how can we restructure, we're restructuring a corporation. There's tradition and there's pride and there's all these emotions that are wrapped up into it, which makes it more complicated. My point of view, Jack Murphy's opinion, for whatever that's worth, I would have no problem at all if the rank structure everyone joined as a private, you raise to the rank of E7, you do your platoon sergeant time, and then you can choose to go and become an officer. And that's where we get our officers from.
Right.
Now some people would say, well, that's too much, we're not going to have enough officers, or just have it that after E7, the next rank is 01.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, when you think of what it takes to be an officer today, or what separates an officer from an enlisted, which is a college degree, right, and then OCS, right? college is not what it used to be at all. And you can get a college degree by, I mean, I got mine through very non-traditional means. I robbed somebody in Phoenix for it. No. But I got mine through non-traditional means. But now, you know, so let's say that somebody goes to college for, you know, some random, you know, degree. Like,
well, that's why our lieutenants are these overgrown frat boys.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. You know, but in general, I don't think that the divide between officer and enlisted is too much. Like, I think it serves a very specific purpose. And even though technically, like, a sergeant major or first sergeant is not, does not outrank a PL, a platoon leader, if the platoon leader is smart. So here's what happens is, officers are reliant, these young officers, they're reliant on their platoons or their team performing well in order to make them look good, you know, in order for them to progress. Well, if your platoon likes you, if they feel like you support them, then they're going to do their best. They will dig in and do their best to make you look good, you know. I mean, not necessarily they're doing it to make you look good, but they're going to do their best for you, and thereby you're going to look good. If you happen to be the type of officer who, you know, treats the enlisted like swine, or, you know, looks down on them, or won't listen to the first sergeant, or the platoon sergeant, or whatever else, then your teams during like evals, things like that, your platoon, they may start sandbagging. They may start like, well, screw you. Fuck this guy. Like, he thinks the sun he thinks the sun is his spotlight, right? You know.
Yeah, especially the infantry. I mean, they can get put in their place pretty quick.
Yeah.
And but it also, the divide is not so strong. Like, at least in Ranger Battalion, like, we would like sit down at the chow hall with our PL,
right,
and have lunch with them.
It's much different in the Navy. It's much different in the Navy.
I've heard that.
You know, in the Navy, because it's far more. You know, it's. You know, the naval tradition, like the captain of the ship, that it is his domain.
They're like putting on their white gloves.
Right, it is his domain. and so, where in the Army, everybody eats at the same chow hall. In the Navy, there is, you know, the enlisted chow hall. There's the chief's chow hall. There is the officer's chow hall. And each one of those chow halls are the mess in the Navy, the mess decks. But in the Navy, each one of those messes, those cooks have gone to, like, by the time you're cooking the officer's mess, they've usually gone to, like, some great culinary school. Like, there is a world of difference. I think the only place where that might be different, I believe, is on submarines. And I could be wrong, but submarine is like, everybody on submarine gets amazing food by people who really know how to cook. Because the morale is so low on a submarine, on a nuclear sub, like that's how they keep their morale.
I was talking to a submariner recently, and he was I was asking him something. Oh, it was about exercising. Because he's on the sub for like months at a time.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you exercise? And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, we had a little gym that was like the size of a closet.
Yeah.
The treadmill was broken.
Yeah.
And the only other thing we had was those like dumbbells that you can like adjust the weight on.
Yeah.
And he was like, even this room was so small, you couldn't stand up.
Yeah.
So you'd like have to sit and be doing like overhead arm presses from like a sitting position.
Yeah.
And doing like your curls and stuff. He was like, it was almost impossible to exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where on like a destroyer tender, you have like two different gyms, you know, and aircraft carriers, I imagine, have like massive.
I mean, the Marines go and they run on the deck of the ship, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then they can also, on some of the ships, I was never in the Navy, I mean, can't they also, they like flood the docks inside the ship and the guys go and swim outside in the ocean?
Well, maybe like on the
where they have what do they call
the landing crane. Yeah, the landing. I don't know about that. Like, I was never on like a landing, like an amphibious landing or whatever they are. So I don't know. But Yeah, I mean, like some of the ships have a lot of, like a lot of space, but submarines,
Forget it.
forget it, man. Like every square foot. I mean, and a lot of times, like guys are hot racking,
Yeah.
like because there's not enough space.
I had another guy who's on subs, and he told me that there are days on the submarine where your duty is to just go to the bunk and lay there. And that's your duty for the day because of sound.
Oh yeah.
Because there's like Russians out there hunting for you,
Yeah.
looking for you. So like our duty for the day sometimes would be like, just go to the bunk and lay down.
Wow.
And don't move.
Yeah. So let's see here.
First one you said, right?
Major. So there's another question, right?
Yeah. There's a handful.
Okay.
Do you and Dave think that World War III is reasonably possible given today's economic system and nuclear proliferation? The global economy sees countries tied together now more than ever. While we may hate Chinese or Russian politics, we still see need to be on somewhat positive from a trade standpoint. And when one large economic country or countries, EU, experiences economic uncertainty, then so does most of the world. Thus the concept of global war could still cripple the victors greatly, as they would all but certainly lose trade partners and profits in the process. On top of that, with countries such as China, North Korea, Israel, Pakistan, India, etc. possessing nuclear weapons, do you and Dave believe it's possible for both sides in a large-scale war to come to almost a gentleman's agreement that once a winning side was beginning to appear, the loser would not simply nuke the winners using the logic that they have nothing to lose?
I think that when we talk about global war now, or when we talk about like World War III, like no war has been like the war before it, right? World War I was very distinct. World War II is very distinct. I guess what we could say is that a number of countries were against a number of countries. Mm-hmm. So, but I think we have to define what would entail World War III, and does it necessarily involve nuclear weapons? Does it necessarily involve major conflicts? Could it potentially be, like information war? Could it potentially be cyber warfare? And limited to that because everybody is so invested in, like you might have a rogue nation, we'll say a rogue nation, that just wants to destroy the United States, take a shot or whatever. But any country, I don't know. I feel like almost, with the exception of a sort of a rogue leader, any country that has the capability of mass producing nuclear weapons or producing them has a economic and sort of social, technological level, right? Where it's not in their best interest to turn the United States into a wasteland.
Yeah.
And also, at this point in time, nobody can really turn anybody else into a wasteland without also becoming one themselves. So unless you were talking about, for instance, the Chinese shooting an EMP, a dirty bomb into the atmosphere from, 20 miles off our coast in a surprise attack, I don't see how any world war would go to the nuclear level unless you're talking about, some ideological group.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of different things to address there. Okay, let's start off with the economic aspect. And a lot of people make this point, which is a valid point, that the world is so interconnected now that it's difficult for a major war to break out because of that economic interconnectedness, that you don't see these huge slugfests like we used to see in the past. You see more limited wars, you see wars within nations,
right,
and guerrilla conflicts,
proxy
civil wars, things like that.
A lot of proxy wars, yeah.
So Yes, there's truth to this, but at the same time, I think it's a huge assumption to make that to believe that there will never be another global war.
Sure.
Because of that economic interdependentness. We've been here before. After World War One, people said there'll never be another world war. World War One was the war to end all wars. It was a great war. It would never ever happen again. We built a new international system. Woodrow Wilson attempted to build a new international system with the League of Nations that would try to bind countries together and create a new sort of international system that would prevent world war. That system broke down, and it broke down because the system could not support realities. It was an ideal that was not supported by reality.
Right.
It just did not support the interests of various countries. After World War II, we did again. We created an international system. We tried to link countries together through treaties and trade agreements and international associations and bilateral treaties and all sorts of different things. And now what we've seen, you could make an argument several different ways. You can say this system started to decline with the fall of the Soviet Union, and the bipolar world was thrown into turmoil and became multipolar. Or you could make an argument that things really started to come undone after 9/11, and the global system started to break down from there. And then there's other things. 2008 housing crisis. There's the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So a bunch of different ways to look at that. But and then today, of course, we look at it through the lens of the Trump administration. That Trump is going around saying, "I'm pulling out of NATO. I'm pulling out of this treaty. I'm pulling out of this trade agreement." So Trump is just a symptom of the disease, though, right? That we created this post-World War II construct, this international system that isn't necessarily working for a lot of people and for a lot of states at the moment. Right. And so the question becomes, how, in the rest of the 21st century and in the 22nd century, how are states going to relate to each other in new and different ways? How are individuals going to relate to each other in new and different ways? And if we don't find those new and different ways, then World War III becomes much more likely.
Sure.
Now, specifically with China, all of that could happen, that the international system's breaking down. China sees itself as a revisionist power. It wants to undo that international system. Right? So like a country like China or Russia is kind of happy with a lot of the things Trump is doing, because it's like, yeah, we want to crush American supremacy also. We want you out of all these countries as well.
Right.
So all those things are happening. I mean, this is a huge subject. There's a whole theory. It's called power transition theory. You can go and do some research on. There's been researchers who have studied how fading powers react with rising powers and how they relate to one another all throughout history.
Right.
So there's there's some good research done out there that if you're interested in exploring that question a little bit more. But yeah, don't think that because we have economic interests that war can't happen.
No, 100%. It's just it's interesting to think of what would it take. I think that at the end of the day, most American leaders will blink before a Chinese leader.
I think so too.
And that's why I think that in the past a lot of our leaders have made the mistake of drawing these lines in the sand. I feel like Bush did it. I feel like Obama did it. I feel like they draw these lines in the sand, and then when that line's crossed, then they have to back up and draw another line. And the thing is, once you do that, you have no.
Yep.
And so the idea is, it's not necessarily to draw these lines in the sand and stick to them. It's just stop drawing lines in the sand unless you 100% are going to go to the mat with this, because you lose face, you lose credibility, you lose everything else. And I think it's also this American hubris to believe that somehow we have to be the actors in the world, because if you pull out, if America backs off, the idea that China, that Russia, that North Korea, that India, that Pakistan, that they all have mutual interest and whatever, they're all going to become competitors on the world stage.
Yeah, for sure.
And
they already are.
And the thing is, a lot of times, the only time when these countries align is when it's against us. Mm-hmm. And we have to start looking at, especially like if all of our technologies are being manufactured in China, and so China pirates everything we do and whatever, it gets to the point of like, business, like how does this serve us? What are the policies? And whether Trump is doing it right or wrong, because I don't know, I'm not an economist and I'm not, a political expert. Whether he's doing it right or wrong, he's the first person in quite a while to even look at that stuff and address it,
Yeah, and a lot of people feel like it's not working out for us.
Right.
And yeah, that question has been it has been something like you're not even allowed to ask the question.
Right.
So you have to be realistic about that for sure. And then the other issue is nuclear weapons, and I lean more towards the view now that yes, a sort of World War III could happen without nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
There's one theory out there that countries, let's take China and America or America and Russia, whichever you like. There's a theory that we will not launch nukes, or the other country will not launch nukes unless we're invading each other's countries. So like maybe America and China are fighting in the Philippines, not nuclear.
Right.
But if America goes into China or China goes into America, then the nukes are launching. That's the basis.
When it comes to what I would think would be more likely. I mean, America is an incredibly vulnerable country because of our diversity, because of our relatively open borders, because of all these things. And when I say, our diversity, I don't mean that it's a bad thing, but what I mean is that like, if you have Chinese sleepers, North Korean sleepers, Russian sleepers, if you have these people in the United States, nobody's gonna know. You're not really putting, an American sleeper in China, or you know what I mean? Like you're not putting these sleepers. So if you start talking about dirty bombs, if you start talking about briefcase nukes, like so I don't think that a launch, like a full-on launch, would ever happen without like sort of a softening, kind of softening of the hard target, basically, of tactical nuclear weapons being deployed in sort of a battle space first.
That's one way it could pan out.
I mean, who knows? Like we're just sitting here playing wargaming, but
yeah. I definitely think that it's something that we need to be serious about. That I do think the world is moving towards another global war. I think we're on the path towards that. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 10 years.
Do you think it'll happen before or after the Civil War in the United States?
I mean, if that happened, I think that would be the time for a lot of countries to do things that they've wanted to do for a while.
Do you think it'll be a Civil War?
In America?
Yeah.
No.
I don't either.
No, not anytime soon, unless a bunch of things change.
Yeah.
Drastically.
Yeah.
Like if we had another Great Depression, I could see things getting pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
But as things stand now, no. It's a few major things would have to change before I could see that.
Well, I mean, first off, if you were to say it's going to be between the liberals and conservatives, if that were to be the thing, because that's what people are like talking about, the whole, left and right. I mean, the first thing that have to happen is liberals would actually have to arm themselves, But even beyond that, like, look, most people. They're not actually going out, whether it's the right or the left, they're not actually going out and doing anything for their cause. They're just bitching on Twitter and Facebook and getting angry and whatnot. Like, they're not actually doing anything.
They're not getting up unless it's to answer the door for their takeout.
Right. So a Civil War, I guess if it were happening in Minecraft or something, then yeah, I could see it happening. But people actually have to go out, especially when it's cold. I don't see a civil war happening.
No. No, I don't think we're close to that. I mean, I could see us moving into some sort of like
we're too comfortable. Like you say, a Great Depression maybe, but we're too comfortable.
Yeah. Nobody wants to.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody who cries, about injustice, like they're not spending their weekends like. helping underprivileged kids in the hood. They're just bitching on Twitter.
It's not like the spook who sat by the door.
Right. And so anyway, nobody anyway. So let's see here.
Do you and Dave think the decline, this is a totally different subject, do you think the decline in the RPG genre of video games, or even board games for that matter, is seeing a decline due to current younger generation's instant gratification mindset? RPG games are intentionally set up to be immersive and take time. They are a form of entertainment that requires time investment into one's character to develop that character's strength and skills over time. Many mobile games and current popular shooters such as Fortnite are simply games that a player simply turns on the console and starts playing. I have not played Fortnite, but from what I've seen, there are no real character progression. Everything one earns or equips throughout the game is contained within that 20-minute experience as items and other equipment are picked up during a single match, and then everything is reset upon entering, with the only carryover or character tie-ins being the individual stats, such as numbers of enemy killed, deaths, blah, blah, blah. Is it unreasonable to assume in a world where everything is expected to be done instantly that gaming is also following this get it right now mentality?
What do you think? So we're talking about RPGs and MMORPGs and are they on a decline? I personally I don't know that MMORPGs are on a decline base. I mean, maybe because World of Warcraft is still really popular. RuneScape is massively popular. If their numbers have declined, it's maybe just because of no lack of new content. I'm not sure. RPGs, as in tabletops, Dungeons and Dragons, is probably more popular now than it was when I was growing up, when it was very popular. Dungeons and Dragons now is wildly popular, and when I was in school and playing it,
you get wedgies
back when it was not I didn't, I started playing when chainmail was still around before the basic set. The basic set was out, but I played with both chainmail and the basic set, and it wasn't that popular. Now it's you see it everywhere.
Yeah, D&D is huge now. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I would say I would say that people are and one of the things about MMORPGs, I think, is people like the social aspect and also the leveling up. With things like Fortnite or Rainbow Six Siege or things like that, I think it's just a different type of person. I like both. I used to play.
Aren't Rainbow Six and Call of Duty? They're kind of isn't there a progression also? Your characters get medals and stuff like that.
Sort of. Well, no.
Because I remember guys on my ODA talking about my character got prestige or some shit like that.
So that might be. I didn't play Call of Duty, but in Rainbow Six Siege, you unlock other characters, but you don't really build that particular character. There's a set of number of characters that you can pick from. And your ranking goes up as a player. Okay. Those characters stay the same when you pick them. Yeah, you don't build those characters at all. And then it's just a one-off 4-on-4 match or 5-on-5. I can't remember now. But I used to love Siege, but I also loved Elder Scrolls Online. So and some people like some of the people I knew that played Siege would never play ESO. It just took way too long for them. And a lot of people that play the RPGs don't want to play a first person shooter.
I have Skyrim on my Xbox, and it's an amazing, beautiful game, but I hardly ever play it because it's such a huge time investment.
Yeah.
At 36, it's pick and choose what you're going to spend.
That might be part of it too. Is that RPGs? Even if you're just playing Dungeons and Dragons, a simple campaign, it's a huge time commitment as opposed to sitting down and playing Monopoly, right?
Yeah, there's definitely different types of gamers. There's the casual gamers, mobile gamers.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are want something more hardcore with more depth to it.
For sure.
But I mean, I think those games are getting bigger and bigger.
I mean, Final Fantasy, yeah, I mean, I don't know the statistics.
I mean, I went up to my parents' house last weekend, or maybe 2 weekends ago. Went out to the deli, or the local grocery store to buy some beer. And the kid had an Elder Scrolls tattoo on his forearm. And he was like 18-year-old kid. Like, I get up there and he's like, "Can I see your ID, sir?" 18-year-old, and I started talking to him. I was like, "Oh, Elder Scrolls," and like, yeah, he played all the games.
Yeah,
so I mean, I think it's getting bigger.
And got the tattoo to prove it.
He got the tattoo to prove it. He had the receipts.
He had the receipts. Well, a tattoo isn't necessarily receipts. I've seen a couple. Tridents and scrolls that.
Oh, really?
Oh, sure. And
you start talking to him, and
oh, sure.
That's like a commitment.
That's
a commitment. That is stolen valor.
That is 100%. Yeah.
But no, I think those games are going to get bigger and bigger, and I think what Dave touched on briefly is that because we live in this like hyper-connected world where we're all glued to the screens, the tablets, the phones, etc. I think there's I think it's going to become more trendy to like sit down and play a board game or a RPG, a tabletop game.
Yeah.
Because it's like anti-establishment.
Yeah.
It's like you're rejecting.
Well, it's almost funny because like where millennials were like had the hipsters, which were like sort of ironic retro. I think that like Zoomers, that like Gen Z are like unironic, like kind of retro where. A lot of their values tend to be a bit more conservative, even or at least fiscally.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, right.
We had a couple of things here. Let's see here. Right before, Americans were manipulated and think skinny jeans are cool. Imagine.
Oh yeah, this is a good question Andrew's bringing up. He says the question fails to address the fact that the cost of developing RPG games with long engrossing stories has increased faster relative to the cost of developing those games 20 years ago.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It costs shit.
It costs a lot to develop those. And and I think that's something that those game makers have been struggling to figure out, like what's the best way to fund these, whether it's monthly memberships or microtransactions. And there's been a whole big thing about loot boxes and, whether it's gambling, in games, and if there's, is it legal, to have loot boxes and, and whatnot. So, yeah, it does cost a lot more to develop those games.
So because we're like basically boomers who are out of touch with all this stuff. My daughter wanted to say something about Fortnite, so she's better clued into this. What did you want to say about Fortnite?
I wanted to say about Fortnite that it's kind of like Minecraft because there's people and you gotta I don't know if you have to make a house in Fortnite, but you have to make a house in Minecraft.
Do you play Fortnite?
No,
Because you don't play it with me.
Do you play Minecraft? Well,
Mommy?
Minecraft.
She plays Minecraft.
I can't believe how huge Minecraft is. I never played it, but it's massive.
Yeah, she's taking classes on how to do it. Yeah.
Well, I used to. But Mommy said Fortnite's bad for you.
Your mommy's probably right.
And also there was a black hole, but I didn't care. But it was like Fortnite, not Minecraft. And I did not care at all.
Well, maybe we can get you playing those Elder Scrolls games.
What's it?
You can play Skyrim. You remember that game where I was running around fighting the dragon?
Yeah.
And I kept getting killed because it was breathing fire on me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That was Skyrim. Maybe when I teach you how to play that game, you'll probably get into that. That's a good, wholesome game for kids.
Yeah.
Mostly, anyway.
Well, you can't trick me out of Minecraft.
I'm not trying to trick you. I'm asking you if you want to play the game.
Maybe.
But see, that's the thing about having kids is like they keep you on your toes because dad's old and boring, and I don't know what's cool anymore.
And then Mommy gives you candy.
Huh? No, we went trick or treating. Yeah, yesterday was Halloween. It was like 3 hours of trick or treating, and this kid got like 7 pounds of candy. Like more candy than I ever got when I was a kid. Running around this neighborhood, and like it was heavy carrying it around, just ridiculous.
And I also have 2 bags. Well, I had 1 bag full and the black bag half full. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't that full, the black. But the one, what bag did I use? What bag did we use the first time? We used the one with the pig and the girl on it.
Mm-hmm.
That was full. The other one was half full.
And you were Alice. She was She-Ra for Halloween. She looked like a Valkyrie, and just like charging into these like Yemeni tobacco shops at sword point, like she was gonna like slay the guy and steal all his candy. It was crazy. I'd be scared of you kids too. Like a dozen of them show up at once.
Yeah.
They're like piranhas.
Also, I saw
Like little caving
Lorelai.
crocodiles.
I saw Lorelai. She was in a house with some other friends I know. Well, not really personal, but...
Out of control. Out of control. I was exhausted. And even she came up to me at the end of the night and said, Daddy, I'm tired. Like, yeah, I wonder why.
But then, for some reason, I stayed like this in bed. I looked at the ceiling. And then I woke up in the middle, like, I want a fire alarm to get on.
So, speaking of which, me and her, we have our D&D game on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
So
No, I can't. Never mind. I wish it was on as a private. Somebody made it private.
yes, because you're not old enough to have, to do what Dave and I are doing right here. Just spraying the stream out into the netherverse.
I don't know what that means at all.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
Can you speak English?
When you're a grown-up, you can have a live stream too.
But then I'm too old to do that.
That's the conundrum, isn't it?
Right.
All right. Was there any other? Oh, Jack's slowly eating all the candy. Yeah, that's the dad tax. Yeah, my daughter's learning about income tax. This is how it works. Okay, so let's see. Does anyone else have any questions they want to get in before we close it out for tonight?
No. Also, whoever plays Minecraft.
I was actually asking the audience, little girl. If you have any questions, you can submit them as well.
I don't know. Where was I?
Okay. So, I don't know. Is there anything else, Dave?
No, I mean...
Who plays Minecraft?
Alice.
That's the question.
Okay, thank you.
No, I mean, I think we covered...
There is one here for you. This question's mainly for Dave as it regards his background, but I'm sure you two can branch off as you see fit. What made Dave decide on the 75th Ranger Regiment when it came to signing up for a soft unit? I ask only because he was already in the Navy and was clearly an effective diver, so did the SEAL teams ever cross his mind, and if not, how come? Had he had a bad experience with them personally, did not care for their culture from what he saw, or perhaps simply did not think they would deploy or see combat as much as the regiment?
So, it's... Yeah, so when I left the Navy, I wasn't 100% certain what I was going to do. So I went to a National Guard unit, an Army National Guard unit. It was actually a Special Forces National Guard unit, right around the time that Special Forces had gone from the Reserve to the National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still, the whole system was still in quite a bit of disarray. And so they had their selection team, which I was part of, I wasn't tabbed, I didn't go to school, I didn't go to selection, I was in their selection team. But it was taking guys like a year plus to get to SFAS due to Special Forces Assessment and Selection, just due to like the turnover and how everything was going from the Reserve to the Guard. The Guard didn't really have their shit together at the time. And so, because at the time I really thought I wanted to be an 18 Delta, because I was a corpsman in the Navy. I was a hard diver, dive med tech, and so I was probably in that unit maybe like 2 years or something, 3, I don't know, a couple years, and guys they just were not getting guys. It was the 12th, and they just were not getting guys to SFAS at the time. You'd go to like do PLDC or whatever, you go do pre-SFAS out in Utah, and then a couple of the guys in the unit, one of them was SF qualified. The other one was on the selection team with me. He'd been at 2nd Ranger Battalion. And so we started talking about it, and I was like, I'm going to go back on to do this. I go, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll try and go 18 X-ray or whatever. I don't know.
They had the X-ray program at that time?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And an 18 X-ray was basically a generic, you go in special forces and whatnot. And I was a E4 at the time, from the Navy, and I did have a hard hat badge and whatnot. But I had already been in the Navy. I loved the Navy. I had a great time in the Navy. I didn't have anything against the SEALs. We crossed paths, not really work-wise, just more like drinking-wise, like in Guam and stuff like that. Like I had, they seemed like good guys and everything. But they also it was just sort of, I don't know. My friends started telling me about the Rangers and how if you really, really want to learn infantry tactics, if you really want to learn how to be a soldier, if you really if you really want to know the fundamentals and this is still though, this is still when the Rangers were big on patrolling, patrol base stuff like that, because CQB stuff like that wasn't really a thing at the time. I don't know, SEALs just always seemed a little too Hollywood for me. Just a little too, just in my encounters with them. And I wanted something that, and I'm not saying like Buds wasn't hard or Hell Week wasn't hard or whatever. I just wanted something that was grittier, that was, because I'd already been a Marine reservist also, so I had a massive appreciation for boots in the dirt, like infantry, that kind of thing. And I didn't want to be conventional infantry, but I wanted sort of that, I sort of wanted like the Vietnam LRP type of thing, the whole...
Well, the one thing everyone needs to keep in mind is that the infantry is good. The airborne infantry is more good. That's the short answer to the question.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is the other big deciding factor about the Army is there are just more opportunities in the Army.
Yeah.
When there are just more opportunities in the Army. So, you go from Ranger, you can go to, a number of SMUs,
it's a
special militaries.
I mean, if you look at the guys I was in Ranger Battalion with, you have guys who went to SF, you have guys who went to Delta. I know several guys who went on to become helicopter pilots.
Right.
I mean, it is incredible stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you get a job change going to intelligence. You go, there's so many.
Warrant officer school.
Yeah. There's just so many more opportunities. You go to Buds, you're going to be a SEAL, and you're going to be a SEAL, which some guys love, and that's fine. Some guys do their full 20, and that's fine. To me, like the Rangers was just a just more like, I guess, down to earth. And honestly, like when I joined the Rangers, they were soft and they were tiered, like they're a higher tier than vanilla SEALs. It's just that, it's just at the time they were not like
it was old school.
It's a much different unit now, and I was there right as they were making that change, but I wasn't a big part of that change. Like Ranger, like when I was in Ranger Battalion, we were all kind of, unless dudes spent their time in the gym, like we were all skinny, like wiry, 30-mile road marches, Now Rangers are jacked. They're built for the job now. We were built for our job. They're built for their job.
Urban warfare.
Yeah, they're built for urban warfare. And there are so many more professional opportunities there now too. You know, they have the doc teams and they have the bit teams, and you know they have the recon guys. Like they didn't have all that when I was there. So it's awesome to see how professionalized they've become.
No, absolutely. As you know, just give you like a little snapshot of it. I got there in 2002, and it was like we had like new kit to wear.
Yeah.
We had like the chest rack and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And although that's what we used whenever we went out into the field, we still got issued an LCE, pistol belt, suspenders, your canteen pouches.
They couldn't quite let go,
And you still had all that issued, and like you get to your team, and I was on private in 2002, had to put the LCE together, execute all the proper Ranger tie-down standards.
Yeah.
You know, tying all the pouches to the belt.
Yeah.
Gutted 550 cord. Square knots with 2 half hitches, burning the ends, like to standard, you know, and that you then took and hung it in your wall locker and never did anything with it.
Yeah.
Because we were moving away from that and moving on to something else.
Yeah.
You know? And then of course I was there when we went from high and tights to
relaxed grooming standards?
No, well, not relaxed, but Army standards.
Okay.
Army hair standards. And then a little bit after that, because I was in sniper section at the time, we did go to relaxed grooming standards, and did not necessarily go over well.
No?
There's the old guard could not. I remember when we got to Afghanistan, and it was a 275 first sergeant briefing us. It's like, and he had his high and tight, and he was like, you know, we've gone to conventional Army hair standards now. Why not just get a high and tight? I go down here and I get my high and tight down.
Do you remember who it was?
No, I don't remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's funny because the old guard, I mean...
What's wrong with a high and tight?
I think, because I remember, like the old guard, when I was there, the old guard was still trying to hold on to the Ranger School, Vietnam area patrol base. I don't think we should be doing airfield seizures. I don't think we should be doing CQB. Rangers, our bread and butter is patrolling. Our bread and butter is... And then, like you need to know patrol base activities. Yeah. You need to know patrolling. You need to know that stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, in Afghanistan, you were moving to target. But how much actual patrolling were you doing? In Iraq, how much actual patrolling were you doing? It all boiled down to mount and CQB, and then CQB fell out. Everybody jumped on the CQB train for a number of years, and that became a sexy thing
because of Mogadishu.
Right, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, we don't have to rush into this building with our hair on fire because there's no hostage.
Right.
Like, where are we going?
And now it's kind of like swinging back where the Army is realizing like we don't have basic soldiering skills.
Yeah.
And we have to go back to patrolling, and we have to learn some of these, navigating with a compass.
Sure.
Because in the next war we may not have a lot of the comforts. We may not be able to operate out of these mega FOBs with a huge logistical train.
Right.
And all the accoutrements that come along with that, be it, the intense medical support, the outstanding, amazing medical infrastructure we have for our soldiers who get hurt in theaters of war. That might not be there in the next conflict.
Right.
So all those things, the GPS might not be there.
Right.
All these things we have to start thinking about. Our comms might be jammed.
Right. Yeah.
All kinds of things that we have to consider that, and geez, even worse, we might not have air superiority.
Right. I mean, look, if you look at like the worst case scenario, the dirty bomb going off over half the United States, and and an EMP like losing everything, like what do you do in that situation? How does your military function in that circumstance?
I think they're trying to figure some of that out.
Yeah, I think we got.
Yeah, there are a bunch of questions. Someone asking about the EU Army, which is something that has picked up a little bit of steam, and the United States is pretty opposed to it because instead of NATO, if it was an EU Army, what would happen very quickly is that Germany would become the predominant force in that army, and that's not something that historically has worked out so well. So we're not too keen on that idea. Andrew asking if I've heard developments about the story I broke about the Dakota Access Pipeline security contractors. I mean, nothing new, no. I kind of said my piece with that story. I saw something on the news about the two Catholic activists who sabotaged the pipeline, or they claimed that they claimed responsibility for sabotaging the pipeline, and something happened with their trial. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was, but I don't really have any updates myself as far as that story. I think Tiger Swan got. I don't think there were any legal repercussions. They were facing one issue with not obtaining a security license for some of the things they were doing, and I think that issue was pretty much put to bed in the courts, or it was otherwise resolved. So I don't think there's anything really happening with that. If China invaded Taiwan, do you think the U.S. would go to war over Taiwan? So here's the thing. Is China invading Taiwan, or have they invaded Taiwan?
Right.
So if they have taken over Taiwan, no, we're not going to war. It's over. And that could all happen in 24 hours, and it'll be done. And by the time we react, or like you said, we'll blink.
Yeah.
And when we blink, it'll be all over.
Like we might, I don't know.
Well, if they have invaded and taken over the island, we'll write them an angry letter. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And that's, Taiwan is thinking about those things because they see what we did to the Kurds. And so it makes other allies nervous.
What we've done to the Kurds 3 times now?
They're like, where's this going, Part of the reason, one theory about why we fought in Vietnam, we fought so hard in Vietnam, was because we're, not necessarily because of Vietnam, but because we were trying to prove a point to de Gaulle and to our allies in Europe that we weren't going to abandon them to the communists. Now I'm not saying that justifies the entire Vietnam War, but...
Well, essentially, we did go in for the French in a lot of ways,
Well, for our allies in Western Europe, we were going to stand against communism, God damn it.
Right.
What else do we have here? At this point, does Dave have any plans to join the Coast Guard or Auxiliary and the Civil Air Patrol, so that arguably he will have served in every branch?
Coast Guard lays some smackdown. I wouldn't mind joining. No, I'm done. I'm tapping out. I'm too old. I'm too broken. I'm too lazy now, to be honest with you. I'm just too lazy now to do another boot camp. No way.
Yeah, I'm not trying to relive the good old years, man.
No.
It was cool. I'm very proud of my time in uniform.
I loved it. I 100% loved the military. I love my time in the military. I love the shitty times in the military. I love bitching about, the shitty times, but...
Yeah. But now it's time for me to live my life, and I have this kid to take care of, right? So, I'm not trying to go back and relive all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's about it. You got anything else, Dave?
No, I think that's it with me too. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you guys being here with us and watching us drink and just shoot the shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to drop the Patreon link in there real quick if people are interested in taking a look at that, checking it out. And
what's Patreon?
Patreon. It's people who want to support us, support the stream, and make a small donation can. And it helps us pay for
candy.
Well, it pays for candy.
Candy would be cool, but no, it helps pay for our rent, pay some of the bills.
Yeah, but why isn't it free? We're being Allison.
Likely to pursue an independent nuclear deterrent.
When me and Allison, we were thinking of us, we wish that toys and all this stuff were free.
Vote for Bernie.
There you go.
It'll all be free.
Or Yang will give you $1,000 you can go out and buy.
Yeah, your UBI.
Yeah. Do you think that Taiwan will be likely to pursue an independent nuclear deterrent?
I don't think we would let them. Because our policy has always been reintegration. Officially. I don't think we would ever let them do that. That would be very, very provocative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they would gain from it because unless,
Yeah, what are they gonna nuke themselves?
Right.
I'll show you, China.
Right. Or nuke, send 2 nukes into China.
Like lob one over to Shanghai or something.
Yeah.
Daddy.
Yeah, I think that would be, it would be tough. I think that it would be interesting if we were talking, speculative fiction. I think it would be a very interesting deterrent to have your power grid and everything set up with shielding and emergency shutdown, and then to plant EMPs throughout your city, state, or your country or whatever. And then if there's an invading force, shut everything down, hit it with an EMP, turn everything back on, and be the only powered. That would be, sort of a deterrent system that
It just takes so much. It costs a lot of money to shield your entire infrastructure.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's why we haven't done it.
Yeah.
Which is a huge mistake in my opinion, but only time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even hardened our critical infrastructure,
Right.
much less everything.
Right. Yeah. So.
Cool. So I guess that's it for this week.
Yeah, thanks guys. We guys and gals and those who have no gender or both genders, we're
Or none.
or moon gendered or whatever. We're happy to have you here, whoever you are, or whatever you're.
Yeah.
But thanks. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. Hitting the bell notification, and maybe 50% of the time you'll get it 100% of the time, the notification. Please feel free to share our videos. Jack, we haven't talked about this, but would we be open to allowing people to edit our video, certain aspects of our video, into smaller, bite size?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, if you guys have any ideas about editing our videos into more digestible segments for reposting, let us know. We'd be curious.
And I put these up on SoundCloud too for the podcast.
Right. Do we have the link for that?
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah. So the link, Jack rips these and then puts them into SoundCloud if you just want to listen via podcast.
And I will have this one up pretty soon too. It just takes a few hours to rip the audio out and throw it up there.
Daddy.
Alice, hold on a second. Okay, there you go.
Thanks, guys. We really appreciate it. All right. Everybody have a great day, night, evening, morning. I don't want to assume your time zone.
All right, guys. Thanks. I'll see you next time.
Ciao.